breaking down Red Raider baseball like only we can. This is the Talkin Baseball Podcast from Double T 97.3 and DoubleTSportsNetwork.com.
Welcome into another episode of Talkin Baseball alongside Jamie Lent. I'm Chois Woodman. This podcast, as usual, brought to you by our friends at Andrews Brothers, which hooked Jamie up with Ruth and a very big chain.
An awesome chain necklace.
It is pretty awesome.
It is awesome.
It is awesome. So we will talk about a few different things. Jamie, we'll get into, of course, fall ball coming up. And depending when you're listening, maybe it's already happening. We'll talk about a lot of roster changes and some expectations with those roster changes. But I'm just going to toss it up to you. Let's go wherever you want first.
Well, it's definitely a season. You know, you're coming off 2 years in a row of missing the postseason.
Yep.
Last year, 20-33, which, you know, gets you to ninth place in the Big 12 conference. You're the first team that's left out of the NCAA tournament from the conference. Obviously got 8 in. So a really disappointing year, to say the least. Offensively, you were pretty good for the most part, but it was really a struggle on the mound. And defensively, there were struggles as well, and just not good enough to win enough games.
Sure.
And get yourself into the NCAA tournament. And so obviously we come to expect much higher things for the Red Raider baseball program under Tim Tadlock. And so you're trying to get going back in the right direction. Some changes made this year. And I think if you go over and watch ball, you'll notice some different things. But you've got a new pitching coach and Steve Foster. He's a guy who, you know, basically has nearly 2 decades of experience working as a pitching coach and a pitching coordinator and those kind of things in Major League Baseball. But you've also brought in Steve Merriman,
yes,
as a guy who's a director of pitching development. Those two work together a lot in the big leagues with a couple of different organizations. And you can see there's an extra emphasis, right, on pitching and developing pitchers. There's plenty of newcomers to this team and new pitchers to this team, but really it's about developing what you have, and when you bring these guys in, continue to develop them, and hopefully that helps them as they move forward towards big league careers or minor league careers, and hopefully it helps you in the immediate and winning more games because you're pitching better, and that's obviously something that needed to change.
Yeah, I think, you've kind of had a decline in your pitching in the last 5 years or so, and you're looking for any way you can get that better, adding extra pitching coaching, adding different pitching coaching, different style, going more with the analytical side of things. Everything seems to be in the pot here for Texas Tech when it comes to pitching. And, I mean, they put out a video a couple of weeks ago of just fall ball starting, and there's a sign in that video, Pitching University. And it's obvious that that is the heavy focus for this coming season, which is interesting because I think you're going to have a pretty good offense this year, looking at some of the pieces you've added there. Yeah,
you absolutely should. And Matt Gardner obviously is gone as the pitching coach. He's now the new pitching coach at the University of Houston.
Yeah.
And Matt had done a great job for the Red Raiders, but over the last few years, as you had said, Choice, it kind of had gone in the other direction, and it just felt like something needed to change there. And they're definitely doing things a little bit differently with their pitching here in the fall, and we'll see how that continues throughout fall ball. And with the scrimmage coming up with the Longhorns, and when you're listening to this on Saturday. All of those things, I guess whatever the saying is, you keep beating your head up against the wall and expecting different results is just dumb, doing the same thing over and over again. And so it looks like they're trying different things to try to find a way to improve in that area.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there, Tech and the Longhorns going to play a fall ball scrimmage. We haven't seen Tech do a fall ball scrimmage against not inter-squad there since, I guess, you played Josh and Jace Young played against each other when you played the Rangers Futures players. So it's been a while since Texas Tech has done this. What do you think was the trigger for Tim Tadlock to want to do this?
Well, I think it's great to play against good competition.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's great to face other teams and not your same guys over and over again. What I expect to see in this scrimmage against the Longhorns is basically a new pitcher every inning, okay, for both teams.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm not going to extend guys too much here in the fall. I expect that you'll see every player get his opportunity out there in the scrimmage, but I think it's great because, again, hitters, if they see the same pitcher so much, gives them a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah.
So seeing other pitchers, obviously the Longhorns have a terrific program and recruit at a high level. They spent a good portion of last year the number one team in the country. So when you're getting to kind of test yourself against teams like that should only help moving forward.
Yeah, you got to think so. And it's the Longhorns, and it gives you some fun to compete against them, even if it's not officially. There's plenty of Texas Tech fans and Central Texas that will enjoy this opportunity. So that'll be a good matchup and a good tester for where your program's at, kind of heading into the fall. We mentioned lots of new faces. We'll get to some of those faces in a moment, but before we do, one of the incumbent players, Logan Hughes, this week tabbed as the number 20 college prospect by Major League Baseball. I was by Major League Baseball. So pretty high cotton there for Logan Hughes.
Yeah, and you would think that puts him somewhere in the top couple of rounds.
I would think so.
Draft.
Yeah.
At the very worst third, a lot of high school players coming out, whatever.
Right.
But you can see, obviously, had a terrific year last year, first team All Big 12. His first year with the Red Raiders after transferring from Stetson, a guy that got better and better as the season went along, solid defensively, hit for average, hit for power, drove in runs. He was everything that you wanted in your left fielder last year, and so you're hoping for another big year. Hit in the middle of the Red Raider lineup for him, but that was good recognition there because, again, it looks like he's going to be a top couple of round guys for the Red Raiders and heading into the draft next summer.
Yeah, he's going to be one of the leaders of your team, pretty obviously. You've got some senior leadership, Robin Villeneuve's back, and some other guys on the offense, but this offense is shaping up to be pretty good. We'll get into some of those numbers to let Jimmy tell us about some of the new faces, including a fantastic new name from South Korea. We'll get to that coming up in a moment, but first we'll pause for a word from our friends at Andrus Brothers.
When you want the brand in West Texas roofing, there's only one company to call, Andrus Brothers Roofing. Like our Red Raiders, Andrus Brothers knows that to win, you have to be better than your competition and you have to dominate in all phases. With over 40 years experience, Andrus Brothers has mastered these concepts. So when the high winds and debris damage your roof, there's only one company to call, Andrus Brothers Roofing. Accept no substitutes. Stick with the starters on the ABR winning team. Andrus Brothers Roofing, we nail it every time.
All right, Jamie, we look towards a lot of new faces, and this is just turnover in college athletics in general. We've always seen it in baseball, but you get a lot of new faces, some transfers. Tell us, or I'll let you take it wherever you want to start, hitting, pitching, wherever.
Okay, so first let me say, remember, you lost a lot of guys to the transfer portal.
Quite a few. Yeah.
Okay.
And some of those pretty late, like after we had already talked and thought, okay, you're going to keep this guy or keep this guy. Some of those went later than we expected.
Yeah, and guys that got drafted that maybe you didn't think would get drafted, got drafted, and are gone. So basically, you're placing your entire weekend rotation.
Yes.
Okay, that's the big part of that there. Also, Damian Bravo, who was terrific for you the last few seasons. You lose Damian, so that's a hit to your lineup. But really, that's the only one to the lineup that you lost that was that it should be a major impact guy, but pitching is where you lost, again, all three weekend starters to either the draft or to Major League Baseball as a whole. So remember this year, there's only 34 on the roster compared to 40 last year, so less guys than a season ago. Texas Tech will start this fall with 43 guys on their roster. Okay, which means that you got to get to 34. Now, there are NCAA laws here in effect that there's some guys that can be trained or grandfathered in, and so maybe that number ends up being 35 or 36. I think Robin Villeneuve would fall.
I think he's one of those, yeah.
Okay, so maybe it's 35 for the Red Raiders. I'm not exactly sure. So but it's in that area, right? So in early December, all college teams need to cut down, and so they have their team.
Right.
Okay. So there won't be guys getting cut in late January, early February. The cut will be made in December, so those kids have a chance to transfer to another school if they want to do that in December. So, so this fall is kind of a weeding out process to a certain degree. 43 players, as I mentioned, 19 of them are returners. That makes 24 newcomers to the roster this year. 11 of those are high school recruits, 7 more junior college guys. You got 1 Division II transfer. Mm-hmm. That's Ryan Free, the old Red Raider who stepped back after playing a year at Angelo State. And then you have 5 Division I transfers as well. So new faces all over the place for the Red Raiders.
Right. Yeah, you've got guys that what's interesting when I kind of looked at the transfers and looked at what you brought in, there's a mixture of some experience, but there's some guys that were really highly rated out of high school that haven't played a lot at the college level that are transfers. So I don't know, is that just taking a flyer on these guys and believing that you still have the talent there and you've got the pitching coaches to work with it, or the coaches in general to work with it? I think there's a pretty interesting mixture of who you brought in.
Yeah, I think 2 guys that you're talking about right there is 2 Division I transfers. Kason Ranieri from Hawaii, and Micah Henson, who was a left-handed pitcher who pitched at Kansas State. Very highly rated out of high school, went to those 2 schools and just didn't get much of an opportunity. I think each of them only pitched 3 times. But we've seen plenty of guys before, even just sticking with a team. You come in as a freshman, not much of an impact, but then as their career goes along, they become much bigger impact players. And these guys elected to transfer out, and Red Raiders jumped at the opportunity to bring these guys in. So hopefully with the development here, hopefully with more time on the mound, that they can become bigger factors for the Red Raiders this year. But so it's not, those guys factor in. But when we're talking pitching choice, really to me, the key for this pitching staff is returning guys taking a step forward, returning guys developing. And there's a lot on that list of guys that you feel like, hey, you've seen some good stuff from, but you need them to be way more consistent. You need to see them earn the right to be out there on the mound a lot more.
Absolutely.
You need them to stay healthy. Guys like Will Jordan, Parker Utero, Lucas Perko, Johnny Lowe, Jackson Burns, who started the opening weekend and then got sick, and you didn't have him the rest of the year. Connor Mohan showed good things for you last year at times as a midweek starter. Need him to take maybe a bigger role. Jacob Rogers, who was good for you a couple seasons, was injured at the beginning of last year, really never got healthy, but has great stuff. And Rogers, now that he's healthy, completely healthy, you would think he's ready to bounce back. Logan Beavis was terrific early, then kind of struggled at the end of the year. He had a good summer pitching. He's looked good so far this fall. Jordan Espinoza, highly rated lefty out of California that showed you some good things at times last year. You need those guys to take a step forward. They've got to develop. So that's the challenge for Coach Foster and Coach Merriman, is to get these guys to the next level. Because you didn't go to the portal and spend a ton of money bringing in highly rated prospects or guys from big time schools to pitch, because those guys, quite honestly, cost more than you have to spend.
And I do think also the effort to spend in baseball was almost a little late as far as those meetings go, where some of those players had already been accounted for.
Sure.
So we may see a bigger spending next year that we didn't see this year. We'll see.
Yeah.
But that was part of it as well.
Well, the NCAA rules, not knowing what was going to be allowed, what
True.
was going to be allowed, and
Yeah.
all of that had to factor into that as well. So Donovan Becerra, I do want to mention him. He's a junior college pitcher coming in, and I think that's another guy that I feel like could make a sizable impact early on in the pitching staff. So I feel like he's another one of those pitchers that you're hoping can come in and take a step forward from where he has been. If we want to flip over to the offensive side of things, Chois, just kind of going through where you are at each position. Potential is there, but your outfield stays very similar to what it was at the end of last year.
Sure.
With Souza in the right field, with Kyler Thompson in center field, and also with Logan Cruz, that we talked about in left field. But there's some young guys that they have brought in that are going to challenge those guys. And, Sousa is the one that number 2 prospect out of Hawaii. His senior year in high school was expected to be a high draft pick, but wanted to go to college, came to the Red Raiders, and he was not healthy for most of the year, so never really got into the swing of things. But super talented guy, and really hoping he takes a big step forward this year.
Yeah, my question, the outfield looks pretty set or potentially set. My question's, what are you doing on the infield? Because it seems like you got a lot of returners and a lot of new guys. Obviously, you get Tracer Lopez back, Coleman Ryan's back around, Davis Rivers is behind the plate. But you brought in a mixture of a really good junior college players, some transfers from Georgia Tech and Maryland, and a pretty good freshman that was in the news the other day with Lincoln Garcia, that's a former Vanderbilt commit. So you got a lot of competition in the infield.
Yeah, no doubt. If you just went with the returners around the infield, you could put Davis Rivers at catcher.
Okay.
You could put Robin Villeneuve at first. Yep. You could put Tracer Lopez at second. You could put Coleman Ryan at shortstop, right? Yep. Just going around your infield. You could return all those starters except for your third baseman.
Right.
Right? Okay. But I don't know. You mentioned Lincoln Garcia. He's a young man that originally from California, prepped in Florida last year. So he's really a year removed from high school. Big body, shortstop, kind of the ball off the bat kind of reminds you of TJ Pompey. The way it seems to always barrel the ball and hit it hard. And so I think Garcia is going to challenge for that shortstop spot.
Yeah.
I think Connor Schouse, I think I'm saying that right, from Georgia Tech.
We'll find out.
Has a chance to be your everyday third baseman. Okay, really versatile guy that could play outfield, infield, whatever. Actually closed a few games for Georgia Tech as well on the mound. I think he can make an impact immediately. Hollis Porter, the young man from Maryland, had a big season, big power hitting left-handed bat.
It's probably the biggest name that you got in the season.
Absolutely. This is a guy that you got to find a way to be in the lineup a lot because he's a run producer, and you obviously want to have those. So
40-plus homers last year,
maybe some time at the DH spot. But there's another first baseman that named Caden Ferrero, who's originally an A&M commit, went to Blinn. This dude just hits. Just hits. 20-plus homers the last 2 years, high 300s batting average, OBP near 500.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing him in scrimmages looks the part. Just looks like a hitter. I don't know where you play him. Do some of these guys find spots as corner outfielders? I'm not sure.
You've got one corner outfield spot locked up.
Yes.
So you've really got maybe right field where you can tinker with, and you got third base.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to watch how this plays out because, and as you mentioned, the roster has to get cut down.
Sure.
But there's a lot of competition on the infield spot, specifically at first base.
Yeah.
But it's a good problem to have because you've got some really good hitting.
It's hard for me to believe that Robin Villeneuve would not be your everyday first baseman as good as he is defensively.
Agreed. Yeah.
And as good as he was with the bat last year, double-digit home runs, was top 3 RBI, led you in average and on-base percentage. A great leader for this team. But Porter and Ferraro, they're going to find their way into the lineup somewhere. So we'll see where they're going. And then there's the catcher position. You bring back Davis Rivers, but you brought 3 guys in. AJ DePaulo is a redshirt freshman. He was at Vanderbilt last year, but did not play. Really talented kid from the Metroplex. Matt Quintanar is a guy who hit over 300 at Blinn last year, got a strong arm. Quintanar, I actually saw him playing second base this week as well, so he shows some versatility and mobility to be able to do that, but a great hitter as well. And then AJ Goitia, again, not sure on the pronunciation there, started his career at Miami, JUCO'd at McLennan last year. This is another guy that's a really talented catcher. So guys that can hit, guys that can throw, do all the things you need them to do with the catcher position. So you're kind of loaded with quality guys there.
Sure.
a catcher, and you're going to want to get some of these guys when there's swinging it well in the lineup. So the challenge is there for Coach Tablott with this offense to find spots for all these guys. And again, can some of them play in other spots? We'll have to see as the season goes along. It's a good problem to have, but I think that you can see there's a lot of depth to the lineup.
I think I'm encouraged by it because it does feel like going into this fall, it feels much more like it did maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, where you've got so much competition for lineup spots. In past years, you've had some where it's like, okay, this is the guy, because it's got to be the guy. I'm not saying you've been void of talent over that time, but it just feels like there's an abundance of talent that you haven't had necessarily in recent years in the lineup. Now, pitching, that's still the big question going into this season.
And we haven't mentioned 5 or 6 freshmen with infielders that have come in and are going to get a chance to compete and have depth as well. So, and you need to be able to develop all of those guys as you move along also.
And Tim Tadlock almost always has a freshman in the lineup on opening day. So we'll see.
Not afraid to use him.
No, he is not. He is not. So a lot there to swallow in, and we appreciate you joining us here. We'll keep talking throughout the fall. We'll come back in next week or the following week and let Jamie give us a recap on what he sees in Round Rock with Texas Tech and UT, and get another look at the Red Raiders. But until then, we'll be back in another week. This has been the Talkin' Baseball podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
Breaking down Red Raider baseball like only we can. This is the Talkin' Baseball podcast from Double T 97.3 and DoubleTSportsNetwork.com.